It takes some discipline to maintain a kind of comfortable central description. And that's essentially a series of psychological experiments that you're carrying out on yourself, giving yourself impressions after you've created something, asking yourself whether or not that's comfortable, asking yourself whether or not that helps you to maintain a coherent view of the system that you're creating with the central description, and a number of other questions about clarity and comprehensibility, as well as making sure that you don't violate some of the principles that we've set out here, such as don't think about the technology behind it first. Make sure it's a human description. I'm going to continue with the idea of a worked example of a central description, all the way from this level of work that you see here, which is basically a piece of text that I'm going to continue to edit, through to a automated harness of some sort that can read it, that essentially reads the bits and pieces of this central description, which are machine readable and I should say intentionally machine readable. And I'm going to attach it to something that I know can carry it out, which is not too terribly far from the a kind of a central description-esque way of expressing the kind of thing that I've already described in this little English presentation. There's a central description, and there's a harness or environment or a translator that reads that central description and it transduces it into the technology stack. I'll be using a package that I created a while ago with George Williams, maybe about 10 years ago, called Scrivizo, which is a set of already known sort of JavaScript modules that we put together in a something of a scripting language for putting together these kinds of demonstrations. Let me show you what that means. That you just saw was produced with a series of commands, which are in object literal notation. They are kind of intended to be allow you to create bits of a web application on the fly and or I should say a web interface for a user on the fly and then get rid of them on the fly. And this is an example like the map that you saw here. There's an init command, and then there's a data command that passes the data to that chart or map, in this case, that was created. And this is intended to put it on a particular page. That page is later we're going to create a control on the first page, on page 1, that will be that will target all the other pages, and in the case of the application that I described in natural language before, there'll be 2. We just said there's a simulation page and a configuration page. In any case, this tool, Scrivizo, has all the things that I want to create, and if there's any missing, I'll add to it. But the point is that I'll have an English description, and I'll end up, from the computer standpoint, with something like a series of these kinds of commands, all of which should still be readable, and I should say human readable and clear and somewhat explanatory, primarily because the way that I'm going to use the natural language central description is with a drill down mechanism through this harness, which allows the central description to still be the operational center of this web application.